is just a few short weeks away, and Rumpier Sports is gearing up for the season with the best deal in DFS.
For a limited time only, we are offering new members a 15% discount for the life of their subscription, including SABERSIM subs. Simply use the promo code NFL15 when subscribing to take advantage of this great deal before our prices go up.
And at RPS, we don't just give you access to one sport. When you subscribe to our premium service, we give you access to all of our content, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and so much more.
And we're not going to charge extra for access to our preseason content either. Our memberships include all of our content, including the NFL preseason. The best DFS players in the industry give you access to their core plays and slate strategies for every sport and for every slate. Simplify your lineup building process by plugging in picks directly from the top players in the world. Watch our premium live streams to gain a huge edge on the competition. Our guys are live up to lock for the biggest slates, walking you through their last-minute decisions, analyzing breaking news and injury alerts for the major sports.
Again, for a limited time only, you can access our industry-leading DFS content for 15% off our already low price. SABERSIM packages are included, so sign up today using the promo code NFL15 for 15% off your subscription for life and start building winning lineups today.
What is going on, everyone? AP over here at Rumpier Sports, bringing to you the lineup building show with our partner SABERSIM. I'm here with my guy Jordan. Before we bring Jordan in, I want to do a quick recap of all of the shows we've done, free shows, and what's coming up real quick. So you can go back. Let me just start with, so today we're going to primarily be covering the showdown game tonight. We got a phenomenal game going on tonight. You can go back and watch the print factory that the boys recorded yesterday. We had Tambo, BigT, JSU, hour and a half breakdown. Just awesome stuff. It's free. Go to our YouTube channel, find that, or go to Rumpier Sports and you can find that. Then we've already had a ton of shows, and we have a lot of shows coming up. We had the cash show to start the week. The GPP tournament first look with myself on that show. We had picking winners. We had the print factory last night with ODB, Big T, JSU, and JJ. What's coming up? We got NFL props later tonight with Dunkel. We got talking touchdowns tomorrow with the bets team and Kurt. We got the cash show, news dump, and then on Saturday we got the Millie Roundtable. And then on Sunday, we got Off the Chalk again, starting at 8:45 Eastern. We're taking you all the way up to lock. We got the Morning Wood after that. And then we got the Up to Lock show with JSU. So we have you covered with tons and tons of content. Today, though, we are talking SABERSIM. We are talking lineup building. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. Jordan, what is going on, my man? I'm really excited for this show. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited. It's finally here. It's football day. Sounds like you guys have a lot of pretty awesome shows coming up. Those shows are all very well named too. You were rattling those off. I was like, damn, those are good names for a show. So no, I'm excited to be here today. Excited to talk a little bit of Showdown in particular for SABERSIM. I think it's probably, one of, if not the best overall game type for using a simulation-based approach. So I'm excited to dig into it and talk a little strategy here.
Yeah, very good. I am too. Now, if you're new with us, you can go back. This is week 3. We're going to take you all through the NFL season. We're going to have this show free on YouTube, the Rumpier Sports YouTube channel, each and every week, Thursdays at this time slot. Catch us over lunch. Week 1, so go back 2 weeks. That was me and you. We went through the very basics. The basics, we had, barely anything input into SABERSIM, but just enough to run some simulations. Last week, you and Mangone covered 3-max, single entry. When we think of optimizers, we often think of only multi-entry players can use an optimizer. Not true. You and Mangone did a phenomenal job last week of covering how someone who plays single entry or 3-max can use an optimizer. Tonight, we're covering the big game. I mean, man, what a first game. We got the Rams, defending champs, coming in, taking on the Bills. Everyone's talking up the Bills. They seem to be the popular pick to win the Super Bowl this year. The game's in LA. It's going to be a ton of fun. And we have $1 million up tonight on DraftKings, $10 entry. Perfect time to use SABERSIM. Today, we're talking only showdown strategy. We're talking SABERSIM, how to use it. With that in mind, Jordan, give us kind of an overview of how someone would use SABERSIM for showdowns, step 1 all the way through step 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the most important thing you have to kind of understand when you first sit down to use SABERSIM and why this is such a good product really for NFL Showdown is what we're basically trying to accomplish with our showdown builds, right? We're trying to come up with the different game outcomes for how a single game of football can play out. And then what is the optimal lineup for that game outcome? And that's why sims are so perfect, right? We have average projections, we have the ownership projections, we have all that kind of stuff. But what's really going on under the hood here is that we are doing a play-by-play game sim of this exact game in this exact context, tens of thousands of times. And when you build your lineups with SABERSIM, we're actually just building you the optimals for individual sims of what comes out of that output. And I think what's really important about what we do here, which is also very different than what you hear elsewhere, simulations, especially in NFL, has become a little bit of a DFS buzzword. We're actually running true play-by-play game sims. So if you could actually look at one, you would literally see like first play of the game, Josh Allen, 12-yard completion to Stephon Diggs, then another play, then another play, then another play. And in football, that game script is so important to actually the way that outcome ends up playing out, right? The teams are going to play differently if in the middle of the fourth quarter, it's been a shootout game all game, and the Rams are driving down the field and they need a touchdown to win the game, versus if it's the fourth quarter and the Bills are up by 21 and they're burning out the clock. That context is so important. When we're running our sims, we're literally tracking every play in order while tracking the clock and the score and all the other things that ultimately end up writing the game script out. And when you build your lineups in SABERSIM, you are getting the actual optimal lineups for those individual game scripts. So I think that is just a hugely important part of understanding what's going on here behind the scenes, because when you get that, it'll start to kind of make a little bit more sense what we want to do here. So before I kind of actually start walking through the process of how I'd actually recommend using it, AP, do you have any questions or any thoughts or anything you want to add there?
I mean, I have a thought. If you're watching the show, 1, it's going to be awesome. 2, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate it. It helps us out a ton. We're doing this for free. We're going to continue to do it for free. I'm going to kick it back to you, Jordan. Let's just keep going. Let's, because what we want to do, we want to go step 1 through step 3. And then I got some fun takes tonight. You got some fun takes tonight. Let's apply those and see how these builds look.
Yeah, cool. So here's what I think. This is typically how I recommend using SABERSIM for Showdown, at least to get started. I don't even do a lot in step 1 here in this projections tab. And I actually don't do a lot in the build settings either. In the build settings, if you toggle this manual mode on here, you'll basically see what we're doing. We're not going to add in any extra correlation. We're not going to directly look at ownership fade. What we're doing is exactly what I said before. We're taking one sim of our 10,000 sims of the game and building the optimal lineup for that. And I'm going to tell SABERSIM to do that for me 1,500 times. Whoops, not 100 times. And what this does is that we can still make we can make changes. We can take stands. We can try to get unique. We can do all this kind of cool stuff after the lineups have been built. But what we're working from is a pool of 1,500 sim optimals, right? So if we want to go in and maybe we say, hey, we're going to fade Josh Allen. We're going to get different. We're going to do something a little unique tonight. Instead of just Xing him out and building some lineups and seeing what we get, we're instead going to filter out lineups that have Josh Allen as the captain and just play other optimal sims where he's not the captain. So I recommend doing a lot of your work, adding a lot of the value in Showdown after the lineups have been built so that you're working with those perfect sim optimals from the actual sims themselves.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you are not making any, I always call it, like when we do this, I always call them like bias changes. You know, you're adding your personal bias. You can use the sliders, raise a team, you know, the team score up by a couple points, raise it down. You're not messing with any of that. Projections, anything. You're doing all the work in step 3. Is that what you're telling me?
So personally, that's the way I do it. Yeah. And I think, and we can go back to the projections.
But what if you think, what if your gut instinct is this game's going to go very different than what Vegas thinks? Like I am on the complete other side. You're still not making any changes, or in that scenario, are you making changes?
So I wouldn't, because I think the far ranges of outcomes are already captured in the actual sims we have for the game, right? Like we say, the average outcome we have for this game is pretty close to Vegas, like 27-24, something like that, Bills. But we'll probably have like there's going to be a 21-0 sim in our outcomes. And there's also going to be a 45-42 sim in our outcomes. So instead of influencing the build ahead of time, I think filtering those sims by those outcomes after makes a little more sense. Now, that's not to say this is the only way. I think we can talk a little bit about how I would go about making adjustments in the projections tab if you want to take that approach. We can also talk about when you maybe should think about doing that as well. But this is, I think, at least to get started, you should see, can I do what I want to do after the build has been run before going back to the projections tab? And you see here, it takes a little bit longer to run 1,500 lineups than 500. That's okay. Give yourself a little bit of time to run the build. It'll be worth it having the 1,500 lineups at the end.
So yeah, good point. We've been doing this a long time now. I love to tinker. Step 1, I'm making changes, insignificant changes, because I'm stubborn, and that's kind of how I play. So I'm really interested. I'm really interested to see how these changes in step 3 are going to look. And you've sold me so far. No guarantees that I don't go on my own and start, manipulating things early. And I actually, as we go back through here after we do this and we start adding some bias to it, I might have you do that just so I can see it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So we got the build up here, and let's start adding some of that bias in. Let's start adding some of those opinions. First things first, though, I do just want to kind of, again, reiterate here, right? These lineups are represented by a sim, right? Like you could literally, this lineup here has a play-by-play game script that is associated with it. And why that I think is really useful is there's a lot of, I think people have a lot of intuitive ideas about what you need to do to build a good showdown lineup. Like, if you're playing a wide receiver in the captain, maybe you have to have the quarterback in the flex, and you don't want to play the quarterback in the flex against the same team defense. And a lot of those heuristics are like pretty good. They're good on average, but the reason most of the time you need those is because when you're building by hand, or if you're building with a traditional optimizer, the tool you're using doesn't really know what the game script is by itself. SABERSIM does. So if you're getting like I wonder if we can find one here. So you'll see like most of these Allen Robinson captain lineups right at the top all also happen to have Matt Stafford in the flex spot, because in that sim, both of those players are having success together. Sometimes though, you won't, right? Like if we filter actually by the Allen Robinson lineups here, there's going to be a handful of lineups that have Allen Robinson captain that don't have Matt Stafford in the lineup. But this lineup, instead of just getting built by pure luck and randomly having all these players get thrown together, also is built from a actual individual game sim. So really, really crucial point. I think that if I could leave everybody watching this with one memory of this stream, it would be the lineups I'm getting in my NFL Showdown builds are from sim optimals. So anyway, let's start talking about this here. So AP, where's your head at for the slate tonight? Let's actually just start messing around with this, and I'll show you kind of how I'd go about doing this.
Yeah. So I kind of think that I'm going to be on the contrarian side tonight. I haven't been able to fully listen to all of the content that's out there, like on our team or everything, but I do have a feeling I'm going to be a little bit contrarian tonight, which will be interesting in running things in SABERSIM. So my take tonight is Josh Allen, the Bills, everyone's picking them to win the Super Bowl. The Chiefs at my team, obviously, we see the Bills every single year. It's always a fun game. It's always a battle. So obviously Bills, a team I know very well. The issue here is Josh Allen every single year, it's like week 1, he starts out so slow. And his opponents have been like teams that are not that good. Steelers last year, the Jets twice, and the Ravens. And if you look at that margin of, victory or loss, it's Allen and the Bills in those 4 games since he's been a starter in week 1. They put up 63 points. Opponents have put up 103 points on them. That includes one that in 2018 when he was a rookie, obviously a huge loss there. So may not apply, but I'm telling you now, this is going to be his first real test on the road against the Super Bowl champs.
Mm-hmm.
I think all the pressure is going to be on Josh Allen and the Bills because everyone keeps talking them up. Everyone, they're the favorite to win this year. It seems like for the Super Bowl, and now they got to play the defending champs. And the defending champs, at least recently, they've had a good history in these first games. When I think of a sport, and you think of kind of like a Super Bowl champ, slump, or defending world champ, slump. NBA, it really does apply. It applies more so than the NFL. So I expect I expect the Rams to come out tonight, and I think defensively they're gonna cause a lot of havoc for Josh Allen and the Bills. And the other thing is too, Allen's going to be without a couple of playmakers that he was accustomed to having. I know they're still deep. They're still really deep. I'm not talking against this Bills team. I'm just saying I think we see the game go under. I think we see more of a defensive test tonight, and I think that's a very contrarian take because I do see a lot of people on the overs. So when I'm thinking about the Millie Maker tonight, I could see this might be a little bit of a stretch, but like a 17-24 type of game with the Rams winning. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's what I have going down for tonight.
Yeah, I like that. So, I mean, here's how I kind of would start to think about that. One of the first things that I really like to look at, just because it's such a high leverage spot in the lineup, is the captain position. And I'll start to kind of think about, okay, what SaberSim has done here is said, here's 1,500 game scripts of how this game could play out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try to start to think about what are the ones that we want to target. And right off the bat, I mean, from what you were saying, I kind of like the idea of fading Josh Allen in the captain spot. Like we can just straight up uncheck him here. And
I'm in on that because everyone's gonna have him. Well, not everyone. I mean, but he's gonna be a popular captain pick for sure.
And I'm kind of thinking too, if we want to go one step further here, is maybe we just also fade the Bills wide receivers in the captain. Where's your head at there?
Yeah, and the captain. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I'm on board.
What we're doing, and so this is the coolest part about how SaberSim makes it so easy. So we're just unchecking these guys, and what it's doing is SaberSim's just filtering in new optimals from that pool of 1,500 to our top 20 here, right? So we could keep going. We could continue to fill this out here and continue to make changes here from there. So I kind of like the idea just based on the game script that you kind of gave me here. I think Allen Robinson's interesting. Just at least he's a Rams player here. Tyler Higbee, I think, is an interesting captain. I don't mind playing the running backs for Buffalo. I could see even in a lower scoring defensive game or even a kicker. I don't know what your thoughts are on kicker at captain. I know some people aren't super into that.
I wouldn't exclude it for sure. If we see more of a defensive type of battle, kickers, absolutely. Everyone hates playing kickers, but they've historically been, kind of a printer for us over at Run Pure Sports. So yeah, I definitely like the kickers here.
Cool. So we'll leave those guys in. One of the things I like to do too, especially if I'm kind of flipping the script of what I think is going to be the chalky construction, is I'll actually go and look at my stacks here. And I'll say, hey, we're going to play the angle that the Bills come out slow and maybe they lose this game and maybe they disappoint here, and just start Xing out constructions that play a lot of like Bills heavy lineups. I'm going to knock out the Bills 5 stacks and I'm going to knock out the Bills 4 stacks as well here and focus on the Bills instead, where I'm prioritizing the Rams.
So I see what you're doing now. So like what you're telling me, like what I would do in step 1, we can easily do here in step 3, manipulating the script without having to do it on the other end. And we're still getting kind of the impact of the true simulations, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. And when you make those changes in front of the build for Showdown, it's not necessarily to say it's wrong, right? Like no model's perfect. There's still ways that you can improve things. If you think if you think the game's going to be 17-14 and you go into the projections tab and change the team totals to 17-14, you're probably going to end up having pretty good lineups at the end of that. But I think this is ultimately the better way to do it, because those game outcomes are already captured in the sim. They're already there for you. You just have to go in and pick them out. And we could even go one step further. This is something I love to do, especially in games. We have a 3.5 point spread here tonight. I think the public thinks that this game's probably going to be super close. I'll just X out the 3-3 game stacks completely. Like not only are we saying we want Rams favored lineups. We're just going to get rid of all the 3-3 builds completely and play like Rams 5 stacks and Rams 4-2s. And you can see over here on the right, it's filtering through. Now look at this build, right? What did you just say to me is that you were hoping for about the game script of this game? You said a defensive battle where the Bills come out slow and the Rams win the game.
Yeah,
look at this
right there.
Exactly.
But what about, okay, so when I'm talking about step one,
yeah,
and because right now, what's the total on the game? 53, something like that. 50.
Something like that.
It's pretty high. So our defenses ever go? I know we ran 1,500 builds, but our defense, are we ever going to see defenses into some of these builds?
Yeah, so I mean, we could go see here and go look at our pool. So we have just right off the bat here, we have basically 1% of each defense in the captain spot. In the flex position, and this is in our entire pool, we have 15% Bills. Okay.
So it's I get what you're saying. It's definitely pulling in some.
So we have some there, yeah. So I would
defenses,
say,
yep.
Yeah, and if we want, I mean, we have one lineup with the Rams in them already. We have 15% of the lineups in the pool have the Rams in there. If we wanted to get like really overweight on a Rams defense build, I mean, it would be pretty easy for us to go and even get like 30% Rams. Right. So again, what I'm doing here, maybe for those that are newer to SABERSIM, I'm just saying I want minimum 30% Rams exposure in my pool of 20. And SABERSIM's going through and saying, okay, here's the best 6 Rams defense builds we have. And if we go and look at these, again, they're typically going to tell a story because they're built from the sim itself, right? We just looked at this lineup before, but in this one here, we get Diggs, you got to play one build, but we have like Darrell Henderson Jr., the captain, who kind of makes sense, especially if the Rams just come out and dominate this game. You keep going down the list, and you'll see more of those kinds of builds coming up. So that, yeah, I mean, I feel like, especially because Sim Precision 10 is so diverse here with a 1,500 lineup build, I've always felt like you can do virtually anything you want to get these lineups the way you want them in the post-build process.
I like that. I mean, that's interesting. So we're only working with 20 lineups right now, right? So if someone wants to change that, running 50 or 100, and then let's just say they're focused on dialing in like their player pool exposure. So how would you transition to that if we're using like a 150 max type of number of lineups?
Yeah, so for sure. So 150 here, first of all, don't have to do a new build. We can just change the number of lineups to 150. It will still honor our, like what we put in before. So we're still not getting any 3-3s. We're still prioritizing the Rams builds here. So a couple things that I would typically start to do. The most important thing for me when it comes to my builds is my captain spots. And mostly I'm mostly trying to, I guess, for 150 lineups, like be somewhat flat with my captain exposures. I don't want to take like an extreme stand here. So I'll make sure that like nothing's crazy out of whack here. And then I'll be checking out some of my like very low projected players. Like we have one Bryson Hopkins captain lineup here. And I think when you have slates where you have 2 really good teams in an NFL showdown, sometimes these kinds of builds can make sense because what you're doing is you're paying for such a cheap captain that you get to play like the studs in every other part of the lineup. But sometimes those aren't my favorite constructions. I'll go through occasionally here and start filtering out some of those lineups that have like a very low overall projected player. So maybe I'm not interested in the Bryson Hopkins captain build. We can look at like, we have a Tutu Atwell here build as well, who actually, like if he got into some space, maybe could break one. But another build that maybe I'm not super excited about. So I'll do a little bit of trimming of my captain spots here and just make sure that like all of the actual names that are showing up here are guys that I want to play. But by the time we get up to like a guy like Ben Skowronek or something like that, projected for like 7 points in the captain spot, hey, against football, it's week 1. I'll take a shot on a guy like that in 5 of my 150. So that's another thing that I do think is a little bit useful as you scale up, right? Again, when we saw it down at 20, you're not going to get as many of those guys because the top 20 lineups, they're generally going to be some familiar names. Once you get to 150, I think it's a little bit more useful to start checking on those captains.
So another question for you.
Yeah.
A popular topic right now in the industry, uniques and how plus, it increases your expected value, your return, especially in showdown formats, the more uniques that you're able to create. Mm-hmm. With that in mind, so what a unique is I mean, when we're looking at the $10 tonight Millie Maker with, what is there, 400,000 entries in there. I mean, you're going to have a ton of duped lineups, meaning multiple people have that lineup. And, so getting uniques in there also while maintaining an optimal lineup and using SABERSIM, how would you go about doing that with that mindset? Like, I have a long-term mindset over the season in Showdown. I understand that there's going to be a lot of volatility. Yeah. I also understand that if I can ship this and I can be the only guy that ships it by having a unique, it's going to increase my potential returns as long as I can, waver through the volatility period, because you are going to lose money doing that, in the short term. But when you bink that one time or two times, it makes up for everything and it makes your year completely. So with that type of mindset as a tournament player, how would you go about building? I mean, is there anything that you can do in Saber here in step 3 with uniques in mind?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So I think some of the things that we've already done here are going to help make us more unique, right? We're playing towards a game script that I think is not likely to be very popular, where we get a more defensive game, where maybe the Rams just win or the Bills disappoint overall. I think we're probably already have a more unique pool than we did when we started. Another thing that I will do is I'll just look overall at the highest owned captains here and just see, like, how comfortable am I getting off of these guys, right? I mean, Cooper Kupp, right? We're playing a Rams win build, and maybe it's hard to say, hey, how can I fade Cooper Kupp? But if he's going to be in 18% of lineups, we see, he's only showing up in 18% of our lineups in the pool. Maybe we just take a couple stands on a guy that obviously has some upside. We could even fade a guy like Stafford too here as well, and just start playing a pool of much lower owned captains overall. Another thing I like to do, and again, we kind of already did it here a little bit, but I will get like really aggressive with what my constructions are and see what we can get away with here. I mean, maybe, if we want to even try to get more unique, I might even see, like, what if we only play Rams 5 stacks, right? And can we get away with doing that here? In this case,
that's one way to get very unique tonight, just because of how good this Bills offense is. But it's week 1. It's the NFL. Anything can happen. And we always go into this week thinking that we have a crystal clear idea of what is going to happen. Then the game plays out. It's week 1. There's still rust that some of these players and teams are dusting off. Playing on that script is an interesting idea. I kind of like that. 4 or 5-man Ram stacks could be the way to go. So I'm curious, if you do that, let's just go with your 5-man stack idea. I want to see what our ownership looks like, especially with like the kickers and some of these other ancillary players that are going to factor in.
Yeah. So real quickly, so one thing that did pop up there is we do get this message saying that we can't meet the exposure. So we've done a lot to this build. SaberSim's now basically saying, hey, we don't have 150 anymore in this pool of 1,500 that can do everything. But we did get our Rams 4 stacks down to only 12%. And we're playing
okay, take our number of builds. Let's just say we're doing 50, because how I kind of play with the Millie Maker tonight. I mean, I don't like to start the season getting like fully dusted. So like tonight, I think I'm going to run 50. I bet by the time kickoff comes and, have a couple drinks, I'll be up to, 75, maybe 150, who knows? But my plan right now is 50. Cool. Just, to manage things. If I get dusted, I get dusted. I don't, it's not going to matter. And I'm playing on this script where it makes sense. 5-mans, all in 5-mans. And the contrarian game script that we talked about, 50 builds, does it have enough in there to satisfy all 50?
Yeah, for 50, we're in business here. We have only Rams 5 stacks.
So this is 50 all Ram 5 stacks. I like that.
It says 45. Okay, let's see. I wonder where that is, because it says I have 50 lineups here. But I don't know. I would say, real quickly, I know the way I started this stream was to say, do as much of this as you can in the post-build process. I do feel like if this was our actual build and we got to this point and we said, hey, look, we've decided we're all in Rams, it'd probably be a good idea at this point to go and rebuild.
My guy Jordan coming back to my side, the tinker in step 1. No, joking, but can we do that? Just play like this is a game script that's way, way different than what I hear the consensus is that's out there. And that's just like, I don't know. I like doing that showdown. And if I get dusted, I move on to the next one. Let's do that though. Let's just say, how would you build it if you thought the final score was going to be like 17-24 with the Rams winning?
Well,
so
if you got a number in mind, I would probably do what you were saying and make the adjustment here.
Let's do it.
Because at least what that's then going to do. Yeah, exactly. And that's gonna go ahead and just kind of refilter the sims themselves to adjust for that, right? And you can see that's actually bringing down projections even on the Rams guys, right? Like Cooper Kupp is going to be a little bit lower projected if they don't need to, if they just win the game outright, right? Even the running backs actually end up coming up a little bit here. This is part of what makes SABERSIM so cool, is it understands these game scripts. If we turn the Bills down to 17 points, right? SABERSIM understands that actually makes Cam Akers a little bit of a better play because of the game script associated with that. So yeah, let's start there. Let's do that.
Let's do 1,500 again and just see.
And what I was going to say is one other thing we can do is we could say 5 players from the same team and say Rams only if you want to go there too.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. And we'll do a 1,500 lineup pool and we'll build 50 lineups. I'm otherwise going to leave everything the same. One quick thing is I would urge everybody, use 0-0-10 as your sliders. Don't get cute with the sliders. NFL Showdown is not the place that the 0-0-10 is where a lot of the magic happens because it's pulling in the single sim optimals there. So, but yeah, we'll let this build and go from there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we get that question all the time in chat. And if you have questions in our Discord, the Run Pure Sports Discord, we got you guys in there and you guys do a fantastic job of getting back to members, answering questions and everything. It's just the SABERSIM channel in the Run Pure Sports Discord. If you haven't yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. We do have a promo going on right now. NFL 15% off for life. That's going to be over. And that includes, if you wanted to, includes the ability to purchase SABERSIM. So I think it's a fantastic deal, something that we worked out with all of you awesome people at SABERSIM. Includes all sports for us and SABERSIM. We cover everything. We have a ton of content. We got cash charts, heat maps, core plays. We got the whole team doing core plays. It's going to be a ton of fun. Discord, where there's so much knowledge to be had just being in Discord and, picking up stuff. We have a lot of sharp members that love contributing, that share ideas. So it's going to be a really fun season in the NFL streets. NFL 15% off for life. Jordan, we got 150 or so builds left, and then we'll be good to go. So I'll kick it back over to you. So just revise us, anyone coming in right now, hopping in, talk to us through the settings that you did, and then let's dive in.
Yeah. So we started here. We did kind of a blank build, right? Or not even blank, but default build, like didn't touch anything. We started messing around. We found a game script that we really liked here where the Rams win. They win maybe a more defensive game. And we went back then to the projections tab, updated the team totals there, set a stacking rule to force some more Rams into builds. And we ran it here. And I mean, right off the bat, hey, you wanted a Rams win in a defensive struggle kind of game. We're getting some Rams captain, some kicker captain right off the bat here. Some interesting builds here. So we could then kind of go in and filter. I'll tell you what, though. So, third lineup that pops up here is an interesting one. Stephon Diggs captain, then 5 Rams here. And I think a lot of people are going to intuitively look at this and be like, what is that? How does that work?
I like that.
I like it too, because you're talking about getting unique, right? I mean, this is such a good way to get unique, is to basically take this game script and flip that build on its head, right? We're still playing a Rams heavy lineup, but I mean, it's not, I don't have to squint that hard either to see. I would even take Stafford out of that build and I would put Josh Allen in there. How about we do it? This is one of the,
can we do it? Like,
we can. Oh yeah.
Baby. Talk to me, Jordan. Yeah. I did not know that you could manually adjust some of the lineups here. This is sweet.
Yep. So this is new as of, I don't know, pretty recently here. I think people are going to be super excited. So you said, hey, I love this lineup, but what about Josh Allen instead of Matt Stafford if it's Diggs captain already? Now it is.
I like that.
So all you have to do is this new edit icon next to any given lineup here. Will let you pull that lineup up. You can start making changes to it. The one thing to note is that once you edit a lineup, all this information down here at the bottom isn't really accurate anymore because we edited it, and it will just lock this lineup into your pool. So, but yeah, I mean,
that's cool.
Especially if you're playing go ahead.
No, okay. So yeah, it just locks it in, and then you can keep, you can keep manipulating everything else basically, right?
Yep. Yeah, we could keep going. I mean, if we wanted to, I don't know. There's a variety of different things we could do here, but maybe we want to keep fading. Maybe we're fine with a Diggs captain lineup, but we want to keep fading Gabe Davis or maybe Isaiah McKenzie, just given the game script we're targeting here. So, we can keep going. So
since we made a pretty significant change in step one by moving, one team down 10 points, can you walk back through kind of the stack types, game stacks, team stack? I'm really curious to see what those look like since we made that change.
Yeah. So
did you already change those?
No, we set a rule for this build to force only Rams 5 stacks. Yeah. So in this case, that's all we're going to end up with. I think, if we wanted to, we could go back and take that rule off and run another build without it and just see. Like, I think that's interesting too. Maybe even if the Bills lose, maybe even if they only score 17 points, there are still some Bills 3 stacks or 4 stacks that are viable. So yeah, we could do that.
I kind of like that because one thing I do with baseball is once I have everything there and I have all of the lineups and I can see them all, I love moving it over to make it so now I'm just looking at all lineups. And now that you can go in and make some manual adjustments, that's like right up my alley because, most of the time I'll leave the builds alone and just let them do their things. But sometimes, just like that one, you'll see a build and you'll be like, ooh, this would look, interesting with, a 1v1 swap, of players. So very cool that you can do that.
Yeah, let me pop back over and just show people what we're talking about here. So yeah, we made this a little bit more clear as well. This used to be a little hard to find, but you can push your exposures table away and instead just kind of look at the lineups here. And I think for Showdown in particular, this is just a really cool feature because, it's easy to sometimes you're looking just like we just had, right? You're looking at your lineup and you're like, man, I'd like that if I could just do this one thing. Now it's very easy to do that. So especially if you're just playing, I think 50 lineups might be a lot to go through and hand pick like that, but 20, 10, something like that, I think very easy to go through and even hand build some of these in the app.
Yeah, very good. So we had a comment in chat from Vinny with the RPS tag. We really appreciate that. He's fading Cup at captain, and because wide receivers are rarely optimal at the captain slot. Man, I'm talking, main slate last year. Yeah, I think Cooper Kupp was in the Millie Maker winner 4 or 5 times. He was the most. I think he had most Millie Maker wins for DFS players all season long. So interesting take. When we changed the settings there, how much Cooper Kupp are we getting in the captain slot?
So in our 50, we're only getting 6%. I think Kupp is kind of an interesting case study here tonight. Mostly, well, for a couple of reasons. One, he is the most expensive player in the player pool. He's more expensive than Josh Allen. He also is pretty chalky. We're expecting him to be, 18% owned with our ownership projections at the captain spot right now. So people are interested in paying up. Cooper Kupp broke football basically for half the season last year, but the Rams also added Allen Robinson. I think, especially with a healthier Cam Akers too, there's just more weapons in this offense this year. I think it's an interesting angle to take a stand there as a way to get unique. And SABERSIM's kind of agreeing with us, even in this build where we we didn't pump up the Rams, but we dropped the Bills down. We're only getting 6% captain. I'm fine with Cooper Kupp as a fade at the wide receiver spot here in the captain spot. When I was running my initial builds this morning, that was like my number one leverage stand on the captain spot. So I don't know if I'm totally on board with the idea that wide receivers are often not captain. I like the idea. I was actually playing a lot of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis in my early builds this morning, but I'm on board with a Kupp fade.
Yeah, I mean that. Look, I guess my kind of advice or what I've seen, every game is a new game, especially with Showdown. Mm-hmm. What happened previously, you probably shouldn't factor it in that much because now it's a new game, new slate. different things can happen. So it's kind of like that roulette wheel, and you got the red or black, and it's tempting you by showing you what's happened previously. So because wide receiver is a very high optimal position, especially in today's NFL, where we have these offenses tonight both teams projected to throw it all over.
Yeah.
So I definitely wouldn't want to be excluding a receiver from the captain slot, even in my projected unders. I think the game's going to go under. Hopefully we do see a good game. I just think, man, game one, so much hype around it. How many times do we then go to bed and it's just like, NFL's here, it's awesome, but game one kind of disappoints. I guess last year was not the exception. I think it was the Cowboys and Brady, right? That game went off. So maybe I'm completely wrong, and I'm fine with it. I'm definitely fine with being wrong, with this, but I do think it's a unique script that I'm going to go with. And that's kind of how I play Showdown. So, I don't mind it.
And one more thing too, I was just going to show, we haven't talked about this before in any of our streams. I think it's a good opportunity for it. So if you have decided, if you are already fading Cooper Kupp, one thing you can do is actually go and take a look at his correlations and kind of take one step further and see who are the people that are most likely to benefit when Kupp fails, which would be, who is he negatively correlated to? And if we click this here, we can sort this negative to positive. And we actually see the guy who's poised to succeed most often when Kupp has a down game is Allen Robinson, which actually makes some sense. There's only so many touchdowns out there to catch. And we actually see that's actually kind of what SaberSim's having us do here automatically, right? We're automatically getting 30% now Allen Robinson on the heels of our Cooper Kupp fade. That sometimes will happen automatically for you. Sometimes that's another spot that you can make an adjustment. If you're already fading one guy, go figure out who that player is negatively correlated to and get some exposure to the other guy. If we can look at Josh Allen real quick. Typically, most common negative correlation here would be the Rams defense. That one's pretty obvious, but you can see some other names here that maybe are less obvious, right? Rams kicker and Rams running game, which also kind of makes sense, right? If Josh Allen has a dud and the Bills just lose bad, that benefits the Rams running game. So maybe a little bit more Cam Akers, maybe even a little bit more Darrell Henderson Jr. as the captain spot makes some sense too.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Jordan, so the goal of this show, always right around 45, 50 minutes, right around that lunchtime slot window, so that everyone out there can get, go and view all the other content that we have over here at Run Pure Sports. Any final thoughts just about Showdown, say using SaberSim, any final thoughts that you would give the people out there?
No, I think you made a good point. Remember, this is a volatile game. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Most common outcome on any given Showdown is not to have a winning night. And then you have the one where you really win and it makes up for all the losers. I would say that this is a really good game type for SaberSim. So if you haven't checked us out already, give us a try and try a lot of Showdowns, right? I mean, the cool thing about NFL is it's a lot, but you could play every Showdown on Sunday if you wanted to. I would recommend at least, Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, take a shot at maybe even some of the Sunday main slate Showdowns too, just because it's such a good game type to use simulations for.
What I would add on out there or to that is have a plan going into it and then set some expectations too. Like if your plan is if you're playing like 20 milli maker lineups, have a realistic expectation around that. Most times, I mean, if you're just jamming in the chalk, you're probably not. I mean, you're probably not going to score any big wins. You might min cash. You probably lose, 30, 40%, something like that. If your goal is to ship it, have that mindset. Get different, but understand more times than not, it's going to be hurtful. The way that you can get around that is by managing your bankroll, setting realistic expectations. Like me tonight, 50 builds, $500 into that. If I lose all of that, I move on to the weekend slate. I'm very fine with that. And if you have that mindset, and if you take that mindset into Showdown, understanding it's a far more volatile game, you're going to have a lot more success and you're going to have a lot more fun, especially if you use the SaberSim tool. So as we close this show up, use the code NFL15, 15% off for hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We appreciate it. Jordan and myself, we're going to be back next week. We'll be talking about something completely different. We're going to try to make it different each and every week. We might review certain slates. We might, I have a whole list of topics that I want to discuss. If anyone out there is watching this and you have some ideas or things that you want to hear, hit me up, shoot me a DM in Discord, and I'll get back to you. Twitter, it might take me a week to get back to you. Discord, it'll take me an hour or two. So if that. So I'm AP, that's Jordan. Simon, get us out of here.